epistle lesson comes from Romans 4, 1 through 5 and 13 through 17. Abraham's faith was credited as righteousness. So what are we going to say? Are we going to find that Abraham is our ancestor on the basis of genealogy? Because if Abraham was made righteous because of his actions, he would have had a reason to brag, but not in front of God. What does the scripture say? Abraham had faith in God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Workers' salaries aren't credited to them on the basis of an employer's grace, but rather on the basis of what they deserve. But faith is credited as righteousness to those who don't work, because they have faith in God, who makes the ungodly righteous. The promise to Abraham and to his descendants that he would inherit the world didn't come through the law, but through the righteousness that comes from faith. If they inherit because of the law, then faith has no effect, and the promise has been canceled. The law brings about wrath, but when there isn't any law, there isn't any violation of the law. That's why the inheritance comes through faith, so that it will be on the basis of God's grace. In that way, the promise is secure for all of Abraham's descendants, not for those who are related by law, but also by those who are related by the faith of Abraham, who is the father of all of us. As it is written, I have appointed you to be the father of many nations. So Abraham is our father in the eyes of God, in whom he had faith, the God who gives life to the dead and calls things that don't exist into existence.
Boy, the wheel is important. It kind of rolled onto the scene 7,000 years ago, and every culture has it, except the Mesoamericans seem to only use it for toys. The wheel is what goes round and round from everything from an ox cart to the space shuttle. Yeah, they have to have wheels so they can land. And we travel our lives on wheels. We've got things with 4 wheels, 3 wheels, 2 wheels, 1 wheel, unicycle. Do you know why a unicyclist can go on longer than a bicyclist? Because a bicyclist is always too tired. Terrible. The wheel. It goes round and round, and so does our faith. Oh, the size of there's a problem with wheels. There's a problem with wheels. It's their roundness. I mean, you try to fold a bicycle down, and the absolute minimum size is the size of the wheels. It's hard to get smaller than that, at least until now. An inventor by the name of Duncan Fitzsimmons has come up with what he calls the morph wheel, and it does something remarkable, particularly for wheelchair users.
All right, this is the first ever foldable wheelchair wheel. You can find it at morphwheels.com. But basically, to make it simple, what does it do? It does this before we get into it. It folds in half. So it's like, well, what about if it folds in half while I'm like, pushing? The thing is, when the axle's in, the safety mechanism, it will not fold in half. The axle has to come out, and you can hear it. There's a little click, and it's an automatic stop, so it won't just come out. But then you can see there's a little clip right here, and there's a blue levers. So the blue clip has to be lined up, and you push this forward and down, and that's what's going to release it. And wherever the blue lever is, you can simply just push it, or put it on your legs, table, floor, and close it down. And this pin even goes through or pulls out to make it very easy for travel. For planes overhead, you can take it on the plane, whereas most tires basically will go on the belly of the plane and can get damaged. Or you can take it easy when you're on vacation. It makes it very easy to Tetris it in, whatever it is. But same thing with traveling for cabs. It makes it very easy to just go and take it with you. And this is the morph wheel at morphwheels.com.
As John Davison used to say, that's incredible. Takes a 24-inch wheel and collapses to almost half that size in one direction. And it fits anywhere then. Trunk, overhead, even under the seat in front of you on an airplane. Collapsing wheel. It's a real change in the idea of what a wheel can be. So what does this have to do with our faith? Well, we are on a wheel. We have a wheel. There's the wheel of fortune, where if you're on the rim of the wheel, it's up and down and up and down and round and round. Or it's the wheel of righteousness. You're at the top. You follow God's laws. You live a law-abiding, righteous life, and God blesses you. And then you live a righteous life, and God blesses you. Round and round and round you go. This has been the wheel that we have known in religion for thousands of years. In fact, it's the wheel that most people see. If you're good enough, and go to church, and get yelled at for not being good enough, God will bless you. Until you're not good enough. Until you do something wrong, and we all do something wrong. And then we have a flat. And it doesn't go round and round anymore. This has been the way people have seen religion through all the ages, and even now out there. If you ask people what it means to be a Christian, they'll say it means doing everything right. My cousin and her husband were missionaries in St. Petersburg, Russia. They had one fellow who was coming to their Bible study group, and he says, there's no way I can ever become a Christian because I've done so many things wrong, I'll never be able to make them all up in my lifetime. That's the wheel of religiosity. But Paul looked at that wheel, and he turned it upside down. He morphed it. See, even in the Bible, even James in his letter, James, probably the brother of Jesus, said that the righteousness of the people of Israel and the Christian people is because of Abraham, because Abraham did what God wanted. God said, sacrifice your son. Abraham went to sacrifice his son, and God credited that to him as righteousness, and he was right with God. That's what James said. What Paul did was he collapsed the wheel, and he took the works out first, and he focused on faith. It's faith. You think about Abraham, before he even really knew who God was, he had faith when God told him to leave his home and his family and take his wife and his cousin and their entourage, his nephew and their entourage, and go to where God was going to lead them. Now, his faith came first. God said, you're going to have a son. They tried to have it the other way, but it was finally faith that brought the blessing of God's love. God's love comes first. We've got all backwards people out there. That 20% who do not believe in any religion have been overrun, trampled by the religiosity of the old wheel of religion. We went to this sub-district or the district meeting and learned about spiritual but not religious. And while we were sitting there, we were listening to the lady who runs it's called Spirituality House in Boulder, probably. And she has people who come. They used to do it on Sundays, now they're doing it on Wednesday nights. They get together, sing some songs, listen to some music, do some meditation. There's often witnesses that come forward and talk about their spirituality. And the point is not the trappings, the stained glass, the building, the old music. It is dealing with their own faith. Asking a person what they really believe. And not coming in real quick with, well, you ought to believe in Jesus. Or you ought to do this, or you ought to do that. You ought to come to our church. But listening to them and understanding. You see, faith and spirituality is like the muscles and the organs of a body. It won't live without them. But we as humans, we like to get together. We like to do this together. And so we start forming institutions. We start building a structure, a skeletal structure to hold the body together so it can live and advance and evolve. But sometimes we get that skeleton, instead of being on the inside, we put it on the outside. It becomes an ectoskeleton, a carapace. Think of a crab and what you have to do to get the crab meat on the crab legs. Now that's what the church has become for a great number of people. All they can see is the crabs, the hard shell, all the rules and regulations. That you have to do this first, then God will love you. And they say, well, wait a second, I know there's a spiritual self in here. I know there's something going on. I don't even want to call it God. But it's there, and I need to find where it's leading me and what it is. There's more to me than just me. There's more to this world than just what I see. That's spirituality. And until we get the word out that we talk about that first too. That comes first. It was Abraham's faith in that self and that out there that is so much more that guided him, and he was accounted as righteous. It's our faith in Jesus Christ that makes the difference. And all the other things, whether or not we use wine in communion or we do raffles or play bingo, that's just all structure. We get all focused on those things and we miss it. We lose it. We become religious and sometimes then not spiritual. We had a fellow there at our meeting, a young fellow. He's a youth minister and a couple of churches in Boulder area, Boulder, Bethune. He wears a hat. He likes to wear a hat. He feels safe when he's wearing a hat. He feels comfortable with a cap on. And so he wears a cap to church. And invariably during the huggy time, the greeting time, somebody comes up and says, "You really shouldn't have that on in church." And he says, "This is what I wear. This is the way I am. You're going to use that as a barrier between us? I'm sorry for you." One time somebody laid that on him and he got so frustrated he just had to leave the sanctuary for a while. And that's what people do. They come to church in their cutoffs. They used to. We don't see them much anymore because they've already experienced it. And they tell their friends, and they tell their children, "I don't want to go there because they're just a bunch of," what's the word? Hypocrites. Yeah. Well, we're all hypocrites. That's not an issue. But we get crabby. We get a shell. And we keep folks out. And that's hard. Jesus, let's go to Jesus. Jesus, that's what he was doing with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all those ones you see. He was saying, get to the point. Nicodemus, you're a teacher of the religion for Israel, and you don't get it. It's something that happens within you. It's like you've become a new person. You have to become a baby in the faith. Because then you can see that the Son of Man will be lifted up, and you'll know what it's about. For God so loved the world. You can say this with me. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world. This is important. God sent not his Son into the world to give us rules of righteousness, but that through him we might be saved. Maybe from ourselves. Paul took that old wheel religion and he collapsed it and said, this is not just Jewish 2.3. This is a new way of looking at God. This is starting not with what you've earned, but with what you get. This grace of God is like a gift under the tree. It's already there. You know, when you put the tree up for Christmas and you start collecting the gifts, and there's some of them are there for, what, a couple weeks? Well, here's a gift with your name on it sitting on the tree. It's yours. And you have to open it. Adam Hamilton told of their family, they were taking down the Christmas tree a couple of weeks after Christmas, and a gift fell out for the branches. They put something up there, and it fell out, and here it was a month or more. That gift had been sitting there. Now, just because you didn't open on Christmas, does that mean you can't open it? Just because you forgot it for a while, does that mean you can't open it again? No, that's ridiculous. That gift is there to open so that we are filled with God's love. And when we understand that, when that new birth hits us again and again and again, then we respond. We respond with the way we live our lives. We have, talking about love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These come as a response to God. These are not ways to earn God's love. And when we understand that, we can reinvent the wheel in our world everywhere we go. When somebody asks you, why did you do that nice thing? I assume that you do nice things for some total strangers. Tell them, God loved me first. And God already loves you. That's all you have to say. Let's say that together. Let's practice. God loved me first. And God already loves you. And you can leave it there. Don't ask them to church. Don't give them a pamphlet. Don't even, just let it be. Plant the seed. And then pray real hard for rain. Because God will grow that new life out of that new seed and reinvent the world through you.